Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the PENON serial. This is a 3 dynamic driver with a 3-way crossover earphone from PENON, and another product from PENON that I was very much impressed with. And this is kind of becoming a recurring theme. I tested the H30, I really liked it, the ISN. I tested the PENON Fan 2, again, the same result. Was really impressed by its different style of tuning. Just recently I tested the ISN H50, again, a style of tuning that, graphically kind of was leaving me a little bit worried, but once I heard it, I was like, okay, wow, this is impressive. And yet again, the PENON serial has surprised me. Anyway, box, very simple. Not much money has been spent here, which is a good thing. It's been spent where it should be spent. Inside there, it brings that case, and inside the case, we have tips, plenty of tips, plenty tips. There's no lack of tips. I'm actually using the green one. It's a cleaning tool. Some more tips still. So there's plenty of tips, no shortage of that. So tips galore. I'm using these green ones, like I mentioned, the same ones that I actually used on the ISN H50. And that's it. So case is simple, effective, straight to the point. The carrying case is this one. Okay, nice, sturdy. Okay, again, probably not the most pocket friendly one, but it keeps the IM nice and safe. And as for the IMs themselves, this is a stock cable. This is, let me just check my notes. Yes, this is the CS819 oxygen-free copper cable from PENON. You can actually buy this cable. I believe the price is $49. You have it in 3.5, 2.5, and 4.4 like I have here. But anyway, what I wanted to show you is the IMs, and the IMs are very nice. Medical grade resin shell with this wood styled faceplate. Very beautiful, actually, very nicely done. It's not fully opaque, the shell, so you can actually see inside, and you can actually see where the 3 drivers are inside, and you can see the sizes of the 3 drivers quite easily. It's a 6mm, a 10mm, a 6 and 8 and a 10mm. So you have a 6mm PU diaphragm for the treble, an 8mm titanium for the mids, and a 10mm bio diaphragm for the bass. Okay, so there you can see the stabilized wood faceplates. Very nice, very nice, honestly, very beautiful. Okay, venting hole there, which are actually color coded, so it's easy to identify left and right side. It's got a metal nozzle, as you can see, with a grill, and you can actually see then the 3 tubes underneath the grill, and you can actually look at it inside of the shell, and you can see the 3 tubes. So in terms of build, it's top notch. There's really nothing that I can fault. Absolutely nothing. Fits me perfectly. Isolates very well. I mean, honestly, in terms of the hardware aspect of it, the weight as well is nothing. There's no fatigue caused by their usage. I just put them in my ears and I forgot about them, honestly. That's how well. I actually slept with them a couple of times, just to see how easy it was to handle it, and no problems. So in that department, top marks in my opinion. Accessories as well, excellent amount of accessories. So really nothing that you can falter. I mean, obviously $279, $280, you expect to have a decent amount of accessories, a decent cable, and at least in that aspect, it's done. It might not be the most pleasant visual presentation, the simplicity of it is what it is, but it's been well done. Anyway, that's that part of it out of the way. What can I then tell you about the cereal? And for the sake of this, I'm actually just going through my notes so that I have some, so I can put some sequence to what I'm about to say. I could have once again compared the cereal to a number of IEMs. I've decided, for the sake of this comparison, to compare it to its sibling, the H50. Why? Because of the different tuning and the different way that they've approached the design of this OnePlus 4. I think made sense to compare it with the cereal, and again, they also cost basically the same thing. And then I decided to bring two other favorites in the market: the HISENIOR Mega 5P and my favorite Tenstrom Oxygen single DD, which again $279. That's the cheapest, $239. They kind of all are in the same ballpark of price, and I think it just made sense to have these to better position the cereal so that you could also understand, because all of these four all have very different sound signatures, and I think that's quite it will be better to position the cereal better. On the cereal is you could say it's a W-shaped signature. Bass, mids, and treble all get their attention. Probably, well, not probably. The treble is the one that's the least emphasized. Let's put it that way. But all of them, bass, mids, and treble, all get their time and their opportunity to shine. It is, besides being a W-shaped signature, it is a somewhat dark sound. Okay, so it isn't the cereal is not straight away. Let's get this out of the way. The cereal is not an IEM for those that are detail freaks, that are treble heads, that like that type of forward presentation. No, it's not that. It's more, and this is going to sound a little bit wrong, what I'm going to say, but it's more of an IEM that's tailored for the bass head, although it's not a bass head IEM, okay? When I was listening to the cereal, one of the things that I was very much reminded of, and I was reminded of this very early on, was, and due to my age and to having older brothers and so on, I come from a time where the 70s and 80s hi-fi scene was full and rich with many brands. Some of them, the majority of you might not even have heard of them, but I'm talking about stuff like Marantz, Sansui, Onkyo. I'm talking about the vintage Pioneer stuff. I'm talking about the vintage Sony stuff. I'm talking about these huge receivers. I'm talking about these huge square-shaped, rectangular-shaped boxes with, Sony had some 5-way. It was a 5-way. It was a 5-way with an 18-inch woofer. So I'm talking about the epitome of, let's say, hi-fi in the 70s and the 80s, where you had these crazy systems that all had very much their kind of wow factor. They all had that very much their own characteristic. But they had one thing in common, which was they all had a very big sound, a very warm sound. And that's the cereal. In a nutshell, that's the cereal. The cereal is all about this big, huge, lush sound. I started hearing it, and honestly, memories really came to me. Some really good memories of my childhood and of my teenage years. And it was this type of sound that actually got me engaged and got me into sound, and I've been into car audio heavily as well, and it was always this type of sound that I looked for, which was this huge, big, bassy sound, but it was a proper bass. It wasn't a bass that was just about being blurry and muffled, and they had no dynamics. No, you know, and you listen, and when you listen to the serial, that's what you see straight away. The bass is precise, it's full. The mids are equally precise and full. They are both the bass and the mids are capable of a layering which is unexpected when you start listening to it. And everything is always done with this very natural timbre. The tonality is very balanced, and it renders then male and female voices, this lushness, this warmness. It's a big sound. It's a thick sound, but it's at the same time it's dynamic, and it's well executed, and that is exactly what captivates you. That is exactly what grabs your attention. Is how can something that apparently sounds so thick then be so capable of having this ability to be resolving to a certain extent. As I said, yes, the twinklies and the sparklers are not the thing about the serial. The serial is not an IEM about that. So if you like a clinical presentation, no, this is about a old school kind of velvety valve presentation. Okay, and it's what I was. It's what captivates you. You're listening to the bass, for example, and it's got this is going to sound wrong, but it's got this masculinity to it. It's full. It's big. It hits you hard. I mean, the sub bass on here is absolutely unreal. And songs like "If You Love Me, Let Me Go" from Melody Cardo. It's unbelievable how melodic the bass and the mids on the serial are, that are able to make that song sound just surreal. It just sounds really good. That's not to say that, for example, if you listen to that same song in any one of these IMs, it doesn't sound good. It does sound good. It sounds amazing on the Oxygen. It sounds equally amazing on the H50, also on the Mega 5P. But when you put on the serial, you are greeted with this tonality, with this timbre, and it just comes across in, like I was saying just a few seconds ago, in this velvety manner. The amount of detail that it's actually capable of giving you, considering what it is very very impressive, because the clarity that there is never a fake clarity. It's kind of a genuine clarity. This is like you're listening to a really good vintage valve amplifier with these really nice vintage old school speakers, and you're listening to a 33 or a 45. You're listening to a record player, and everything has this wow factor that you're like, wow, okay, this is good. I can understand why, and this is the truth. This is the reality. I'm not detracting any value, obviously, from the brands of today, from the stuff that is being done today. But when you consider the diminished technology that they had back in those days by comparison for today, and you actually see how good they were able to do some of these things, how good they were able to make amplifiers sound and speakers sound without requiring any of these fancy, and knowing and having the ability to even measure all of these fancy time delay issues, and the speaker, the distance of the tweeter in relation to the mid-range and to the bass, but everything just somehow magically came through and sounded amazing. I mean, I'm a big fan of Tannoy. I've got these old 15-inch LSU speakers, and I just don't. I won't swap them for anything. Period. I will not swap that sound for anything, because it just sounds perfect. To my ears, it sounds perfect. I'm not saying fancy BMW or a Wilson Watt Puppy 5 or any of those other new fancy brands that have all these doesn't sound better. It probably does, but to me, my my good old LSU HF 15.8s, they ain't going anywhere, period. So yeah, that's basically the bass. It's phenomenal, honestly. The bass on the serial is phenomenal. It's got this really good rumble, but at the same time, there's enough cleanliness and there's enough slam and enough control to never make it feel muddy. It sounds always very clean. Mids are again magical. I mean, they are thick, but they are engaging. It's the same situation as in the bass. They just sound so good, so correct, so engaging, so satisfying. Woodwind instruments like saxophones and stuff, they sound amazing. They sound perfect to my ears. They sound absolutely perfect. Vocals, honestly, only pianos I would say are the ones that perhaps don't come across in the most ideal manner. And then finally the treble. Yes, it's behind the mids and the bass. Yes, it doesn't apparently have all that ability to be as detailed and so on and so forth. But you know what? It doesn't lack detail at the same time. It's not the ultimate sparkly and twinkly, but it doesn't lack detail, and it's fatigue free. There's no shout, there's no harshness, there's no splashiness. The cymbals are perhaps, yes, a little bit soft, but everything is just very, very smooth, very buttery, very velvety. Honestly, there's really nothing that I can fault it, because I am capable of understanding what the idea here is. And the idea here is for you to listen to the serial and not pick up on three individual drivers doing the work. It's just one driver, and that's in my opinion, that's been perfectly executed. The coherency between drivers is in my opinion one of the make or break it of a good or a mediocre IM. And in my opinion, that coherency in the serial has been done flawlessly. On the technicality side, okay, soundstage could be a bit bigger, it could be, but it's down to the air ability of the serial being a little bit below what you would expect, perhaps. But it's not that it has a bad soundstage. It's not that the imaging is far away. It's not that the resolution or the detail retrieval is bad. No, it's not bad. It's good when you take it into the context of what the whole idea was. It was to give you a vintage velvety sound. I'm almost 100% sure that was the idea of whoever tuned this. He wanted to bring you a velvety, smooth, vintage type of sound, that everything just was very correctly executed. And the drivers in here are definitely of a decent quality, because if they weren't of a decent quality, the bass wouldn't be the way it is, the mids wouldn't be the way they are. That is a guarantee. You can see that they did choose the drivers carefully, because if they hadn't, everything would just be a mess. One of the things that I can perhaps say about the soundstage, so that you guys can better understand, it's like you listening to those mentioned speakers I said earlier, but instead of listening to them in this nice big room where you have the space to let them perhaps breathe, you are on top of the speakers a little bit. You're too close to the speakers, and so you lose that ability of grandeur to a certain extent that they can convey. It's not bad. It's not that it's wrongly executed or anything. No, it's just a little bit closed in. Okay, that's why I said in the beginning, if you are all about technicalities and wanting details and the last twinkle and this is not for you. Forget it. This is not for you. So compared to the others here, what can we? Well, the Mega 5P is neutral. It's all about being neutral and being very unfatiguing. And yes, when you listen to it, you definitely get that. It's a very clean presentation. Everything is very balanced out. There's nothing that stands out in the wrong way. And this comparison I'm having of these three with the serial is not to this one is better, that one is worse. No, it's just for you to better understand. This is The only area where I would say that this is better, or is more engaging than the serial is in the clarity that it has up top, which then conveys, the detailed retrieval, the sound stage, the technicalities, a little bit more life. That's the only area. But it's not that makes this a better or worse IM, because then in terms of the sub bass and the mids, I mean, you have to listen to the serial, and you have to truly be open to appreciating what it's about, and then you'll see that, okay, this is a special IM. This is truly a special IM. Compared to its brother, the H50. The H50, like I mentioned a few days ago, surprised me by having this graph that was like a little bit on the scary side. But once you listen to it, it's just unreal. The quality of the bass, once again, I think is very much. It's a super fast, super dynamic bass, much more dynamic even than what it is on the serial. But the serial, by comparison, has this insane sub bass capability. The mids there are also equally as emotional. I mean, if the mids are emotional and have this velvety feel, you get the same thing in the ISN. Again, the only area where the ISN will perhaps satisfy more people, especially those that pay attention to those little details up top, it will be in the highs. The highs there are cleaner, but it's not they are cleaner and better. No, they're just cleaner, and they just match the rest of the tuning in a perfect manner. The same way as here, the highs, although apparently subdued, they are perfectly matched to the rest. It's like, it's. I'm trying to find here an analogy that would make sense so that you guys can understand. Every one of these IMs has been thought out properly, and they are here for a reason. Okay, like I said earlier. You can understand that when they did what they did here on the HISENIOR, they wanted to do it this way, and everything was done in a manner that it just made sense with the rest of the abilities of the IM. So that the neutrality that the Mega 5P offers you is perfect. The unusual, I don't even know how to call the signature of the ISN. I would say I could consider it a neutral signature to a certain extent, with a warmness in the bass. Let's put it that way. But again, it's all been done in a manner where everything just matches up very nicely across the board, and that's the same situation here with. Apologies about that. And that's the same situation here with the serial. Everything has just been matched perfectly, so that everything just comes across correct, as one. Okay. Finally, the oxygen. Well, the oxygen really needs no introduction. It's for me the IM that I use as a reference in terms of mids, in terms of its tonality, its timbre. It's perfect in my opinion. For me, it's perfect. And the serial has been probably the first IM that. And I think it also has to do with the fact that it's an all dynamic driver IM. But it's been the first IM where I can say that in terms of timbre and tonality of the mids, it's probably beating the oxygen in more times than less. I was very, very impressed by how I was listening to many songs that I usually listen to. I mean, Mediterranean Sunrise from Andrea Razwati, Electrified from Boris Bank, Don't Leave Me Lonely from Mark Ronson and Yeba. Many songs, The Chemistry of Love, a whole bunch of songs that I usually listen to, and I enjoy listening to them in the oxygen. This just was able to keep up with the timbre and the tonality and the presentation that the oxygen is for me excellent at doing, but surpass it as well. The only time that I was saying, okay, the oxygen is better here, the oxygen is better, is where the song just has more details up top, more cleanliness up top, that requires you to have that air, that requires you to have an IM capable of presenting more space to things. Okay, I'm trying to think here of a good song to use as an example. Let me see. Let me just open up my playlist. Sorry, guys. In a sentimental mood, for example, that's a good one. The ability of the oxygen to create more air, more space, just renders the presentation just that little bit extra more satisfying. It's the serial is neck on neck, but it's just, wow. Another one, let's see, Swept Away from Carol Dubach. That's another good one. The impact, the slam, the mids, the voice, everything here is exquisite. But then you just have that little extra air, a little extra on the oxygen that just takes this and just pushes it a notch above, just edges it out slightly. Does that mean that overall it's a better IM than the serial? No, it's just a different style of a tuning. It's a Harman style tuning, and that's the thing about this. I chose any IMs here which have very different styles of tuning. W, Harman, let's say neutral, warm on the bass, neutral. All of them very different to each other, but all capable of sounding absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Honestly, there's just absolutely nothing that I can really say is a fault on the serial. Oh no, this is a major deal breaker. The thing that it has, I've said it already straight away. If you like a clinical presentation, if you like details galore, this is not for you. Okay, if you like an old school sound, wow, you will be impressed. Trust me. I used my usual sources in terms of the deck amps. I liked it both on the TK2 because it was on the TK2 it was able to take away a little bit of that clinical sense that the TK2 has. It was capable of making it warm, let's put it that way, and using the NX7 with the AKM, wow, seriously, wow. I mean, perfect, really, really good. Anyway, guys, this is getting like a really big review now, so I'm gonna leave you. I'm just gonna show you the graphs, and that's that. So as always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you at least give them a chance if you have to. Give them a chance, listen to them. I'm not gonna say go out and spend $300 straight away. No, give them a chance, listen to them. But definitely, if you're an old school guy like myself, you will definitely like this. Take care. Hey guys, this is the graph section for the PENON serial review, and straight away, this is the graph for the serial. As you can see, massive amounts of bass. I mean, we're talking about 12 dBs from the lowest point of the mids, around 800 hertz. So there's a 12 dB gain to the lowest of the sub bass. While the rest of the signature, I would say, stays within about a 10 dB window, more or less. But the important thing to take away out of this graph is that, once again, and very much similar to what was already the case in the graph of the HISENIOR H50, is the graph doesn't do true justice to what the sound of the serial is. Excuse me. It is honestly a very, very nice sounding IEM. One that I truly recommend you guys listen, because in terms of its tonality, timbre, that velvety, lush, thick sound that it's capable of doing, but at the same time with control, with speed, with dynamics involved, and it's just really, really engaging. Very, very, very engaging sound. Keep in mind, please, this is the graph I got with the tip that I am using. Actually, all the graphs that I usually show are graphs with the tip that I use in my ears, and not necessarily the stock tips. And when it is the stock tip, I'll mention it, and not necessarily the tip that might graphically be the most appealing. Okay, so this is the tip, the green tip that I used. All right, so that's the serial. This next graph that I'm showing, let me just align this so that it makes more sense. And I'm going to align this at 500 hertz as opposed to 1. Okay. Excuse me. This next graph is the graph of the HISENIOR, the Mega 5P. And across the area of the mids and upper mids, they are very similar in what they actually sound like. Although you see that there's more energy here in the Mega 5P as compared to the PENON, and obviously there's way more guts in the PENON than there is on the Mega 5P. The thing to keep in mind here is that the Mega 5P is all about neutrality. I mean, everything stays within a window of 77 to 83, so we're talking roughly 6 dBs more or less, so that's a tight window there. And it sounds really clean, detailed, neutral, very smooth, but it lacks, yes, there's more detailed retrieval, there's more air here, but it lacks that. And it's not that I'm not saying this in a bad way. It lacks it because that was not the design premise. It just lacks that velvety kind of smooth, buttery feel that the serial has, which I honestly find very, very engaging. The next one is the sibling of the serial, the ISM, the H50. Again, and I'm going to actually also balance it out at about 500 hertz. I think it makes the most sense. No, actually, actually, you know what? I'm actually going to put it at 1K, because at 1K is what it actually sounds like, and not at 500. So there, I'm going to keep this one at 1K. This is one graph that you really have to take with a grain of salt, because what you see and what you hear are two totally different things. The mids are no way as scooped as it seems here. No way, they aren't. And I think it's all down to the fact that this really stays within a very tight window. I mean, everything here stays within 77, 80, 84. So again, 6-7 dBs. The fact that it stays within that very tight window, I think, is one of the reasons why it sounds the way it sounds. And it sounds really good. It's a different tuning, but it sounds so good. And that's one of the things that I actually mentioned in the beginning of the review, was that these IEMs have all got very different type of tunings, as you can obviously see. It's not the more common, let's say, Harman kind of curve that you see so many IEMs doing today. But the reality is that although they've, and I'm going to mention this again, it's going to be a little bit of a deja vu. This is all different flavors of chocolate cake done in, it's not different flavors, sorry. This is all different ways of doing a chocolate cake, of mixing ingredients in a different order, but the result is chocolate cake, and it's good. And finally, actually, let me just take away some of the others so that it doesn't seem so confusing. And then finally, the graph of the oxygen. The graph of the oxygen, this first one is the usual graph that we sometimes see on the oxygen, and I'm actually showing it first so that when I put what I graphed with the tip that I'm using, you guys can understand. So again, let me just center this at about 1K. That's it. So there we go. That's what the oxygen with its stock tips is, and that's what you usually will see the graph of it being like. Okay, the mids, as you can see, are very comparable to the mids of the serial. The difference being that they obviously will sound more open, because there isn't this massive amount of bass like we have on the serial here. And yes, there is a little bit more air up top there, although it seems like they both are similar. Okay, now what I did, or what I used, are different tips to KB07, and that's the graph for the KB07. So actually, let me just put both of them together so that you can see the oops, sorry guys. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, using the KB07 tips, the difference really is in the amount of energy past 10K. So there's more energy in the past 10K, and it's slightly different as well over here in this area. Anyway, so I'm going to take away the one that I'm not using. I'm going to put the one that I am using. Okay, just recenter this again. There we go. As you can see, the oxygen, plenty of air and plenty of detail retrieval, which is very obvious. But, you know, and like I mentioned before, timbre and tonality for me on the oxygen are absolutely flawless. It's my reference. It's the one that I usually use as a reference. But it was very surprising and very interesting to see how I saw myself, considering the timbre and the tonality of the serial in quite a few times, being so much more to my liking than I was expecting, honestly. Actually, the serial, I didn't listen to it, contrary to what I most of the times do. I didn't listen to it before graphing it. And from the first listen, I said to myself, wow, this thing plays well. It seems dark, but it plays well. And then when I graphed it, some of my ideas about it were confirmed, but other ideas, I was surprised. So yeah, this is basically the comparison of the graphs. Oxygen, super open, detail, with a very correct sounding timbre and tonality that is very much matched by the timbre and the tonality of the serial. The serial just doesn't keep up with the oxygen, is in terms of technicalities, they're not as good. Okay. The Mega 5P, this one, amazing IM as well, super neutral, super easy listening. I mean, really a very nice IM, very well executed. So kudos again to HISENIOR. This next one is the ISN. Once again, a very nice, engaging, and different sounding IM, and you can see by the four curves together, all of them are very different. Fair enough, I've got some equalized at 500 and some equalized at 1000 hertz at 1K, and that's simply because this is how I feel them. If I don't feel them being, let me just show you here. If I actually put them all at 1K, here we go. So that's at 1K, that's at 1K, and the oxygen is at 1K. Okay, so they're all at 1K. No way the Mega 5P sounds this different in terms of its presentation as compared to the serial. Yes, you obviously do notice that the serial's got tons more bass, but the difference is not what is seen here graphically. That's not what I perceive in terms of hearing. But anyway, that's all. This is all centered now at 1K, so you guys can see the difference between these four IEMs, which is, you know, they couldn't be more different from each other, and they all sound amazing. They all sound absolutely amazing. Anyway, guys, this has been a really long review. As always, like and subscribe. If there's any questions that you want to do, please feel free, and see you in the next one. Take care.